Hello, my crafty friends. Welcome to my channel. My name is Chris, and if you love all things crafty, well, you are in the right place. This video is part of the Creating Through the Seasons with TDS playlist hosted by none other than Brandy at the DIY Struggle, but more on that later. So let's begin with some non-traditional colored Christmas decor. I've got one of these little mini cutting boards that I made using my scroll saw. In addition to this cutting board, I have got this rice paper that you can find at the DIYstruggle.com, but I thought it would make a great backboard. And I'm also going to be using some little gingerbread castings from IOD Mold, the Gingerbreads. If that's the name of it, I can't remember, but I'll have all my products linked in my description box. First thing I'm going to do is I am going to grab a white paint, and I'm using the Fusion Casement All-in-One paint, and I am going to cover the top portion of our cutting board, and like I said, just the top section. And I have got one of Brandy's fabulous fan brushes. I absolutely love this brush. Oh my goodness. Okay, if you've watched me before, you have seen me brag about these brushes, but I am going to apply some clear liquid patina to the top where we painted using this brush in just a nice good layer all over. And then I'm just going to place my paper down, and I'm just coming a little bit down below where the hole in the cutting board is, but I'm going to use some plastic wrap. I'm going to smooth this out, making sure to eliminate all the wrinkles, all the bubbles, and just for extra, I'm going to grab my brayer and just kind of roll over it. There are so many different techniques that you can use to make sure you're eliminating bubbles when you are decoupaging. And honestly, this paper is thick enough. It probably really wasn't necessary, but out of habit. So once my paper has dried, I'm just going to grab my X-Acto knife, and I'm going to just trace around this board with it, cutting off all that excess paper. Once I've got all that excess paper off, I will take my little finger sander, and in a downward motion, I am just going to finish removing any of that excess paper, making it have a nice seamless finish. Off camera, I went ahead and painted my little gingerbread people, and then to give them a little bit less vibrant colored look, I'm just going to take some white wax and just pounce that all over my castings, and then I will wipe back all the excess. And apparently I've lost some footage, but I did go ahead and paint the remainder of my cutting board in a black color paint. And then to adhere my castings to the top of my cutting board, I am going to use Eileen's Turbo Tacky Glue. This stuff really works great, but you can use heck, you could use hot glue if you want. I just wanted this to be permanent. I'm actually going to be giving these to my daughter to add to her Christmas decor, so I didn't want them falling apart on her. But I'm just going to finish that up, let that dry. Now, out of the 3 projects I did in this video, I think this one is the one that is a little less moody of the 3, a little bit more fun since it's got some of that color in there, but I do love the way it turned out. Next, I'm going to grab some baker's twine, and I just decided to use the colorful one since I have all those colors in the gingerbread people. And I'm just going to go ahead and thread that through this a little bitty hole. I don't know why I didn't drill a larger hole, probably because the handle itself is so small. But once I get that threaded through and tie it, I'm just going to add one of my little handmade tags. I love to make tags if you guys do not know. But I'm just going to tie this here at the end so it hangs and dangles down. And I do show my finale at the end of my video, so make sure you stay tuned for that. But this one will be complete. And before we start the second DIY, let's talk a little bit about this playlist. This playlist is hosted by none other than Brandy at the DIY Struggle. You can find her here on YouTube at the DIY Struggle. She has so many videos to spark your creativity, so make sure you guys check her out, give her a follow. And all my projects will be featuring the products that she sells at the DIYstruggle.com. This is where she has all kinds of products, and just clicking on her shop, you will be able to find decoupage paper, rice paper, rub-on transfer stencils. Her artist brushes are fantastic, so make sure you go check out these supplies. The price points are incredible. I will have all the links in my description box, including the playlist, so make sure you check out everybody participating. You are not going to want to miss these talented creators. And if you are just finding me through the playlist link, I'd like to welcome you to my channel and hope you will consider hitting that subscribe button. Become part of my crafty family, where I upload videos once a week, anything from wood builds to thrift flips, upcycles, all things crafty. So with all that being said, let's continue on to DIY number 2. So I thrifted this silver plated piece, and I am going to grab my Big Daddy crocodile. I will have him linked in my description box, but I want to make a hanger with this. So I am going to punch some holes in it. Yes, it's nothing fancy, nothing crazy. So don't get too crazy. These are a dime a dozen at the thrift stores. There are even pieces I've seen at the Dollar Tree that resemble this. So grab one and let's make a wall hanger. But I am going to punch 2 holes so I can create a hanger. And let me tell you, this Big Bite is amazing. Amazing. Just a little bit of pressure and it bit right through this, creating the most perfect holes. Now I'm just going to grab some tissue paper. This is one of the plies of some tissue paper I was decoupaging with that I had peeled off the layer, and well, I saved it, and I'm glad I did because I had an idea for it, but I'm just kind of shaping it where I'm going to be placing it. That way, when I grab my stamps, I am grabbing this stamp from IOD called the Waltz. It's got all these beautiful music notes, and finally got my hands on it. I was so excited. Oh, and this was the first time I'm using it, so I am just priming it here with a 220 grit sandpaper and just lightly running over it with that. And then I'm just picking a section that I'm going to want to stamp, and I thought it would just be easier to pull them off of their carrier sheet and just kind of lay them out as I want them. And you guys, I thought that was funny. I was looking for that piece. It got stuck to the other piece. I thought that was hilarious. But once I get those laid out as I'm going to want to stamp them, I am going to grab one of the IOD mounts, and I'm just going to place it on that stamp, and this is just going to pick it up just how I laid it out. And then I'm going to grab some black ink from IOD, and I'm just going to stamp it up. I'm just going to lay that right on top of where I want to stamp. I'm just going to rub my fingers over that very lightly. Lift straight up, and we have our image. And anytime I use any of my stamps, I immediately grab a baby wipe and I just clean them up. Of course, you don't need a baby wipe for this. You could just take a wet rag, but you definitely want to remove any of that ink before it dries on your stamps. And then I'm just going to set that aside. I'm going to go back to our little plate here, or bowl, whatever you want to call it. I'm going to grab this color Iron Gate. It is from Heirloom Traditions. This is an all-in-one paint. I love to use an all-in-one paint. It just saves me that extra step from having to apply a sealer, and I find it works the best on these metal pieces. So I'm going to cover the entire front with the exception of that bottom circle you see where I'm outlining. I am not going to paint in there, but I end up giving this 2 full coats. Once I got that paint dried down, I'm going to grab the color Champlain from Fusion, and this is what I am going to paint on the bottom here, and I do end up applying 2 full coats. And once that has dried, I am going to grab my tissue paper and place that where I want to decoupage, which is one of the main reasons I decided to use a lighter color right in the center. That way I can just place this on. But I'm going to first start just by trimming it out, get rid of some of that excess paper, make it a little bit easier to work with. Just going to grab a wet paintbrush and go around where the indentation is, where we creased it, and then just tear that off. And this is going to give us those edges that will look a little bit less noticeable. And I'm going to grab my DIY Struggle fan brush and some clear liquid patina, and I am going to decoupage that. I'm just going to start in sections. Once I get that first section laid down, I just kind of tap it down with my finger, and then I'm just going to lift it up, apply the remainder of my medium, and tap it down with my finger. And this ends up with some wrinkles, okay? I'm not going to lie to you. I think the best method with tissue paper is to use the iron-on method, but you do you. I decided to grab me a little bit of plastic wrap and just kind of try to smooth that out. And this does help, but I'm okay with it showing some of the wrinkles. But if you want more of a flawless look, definitely do the iron-on method. And then I'm going to go over the top of that and seal this in with some more of that liquid patina. And these are one of the dry rub transfers from the DIYstruggle.com. And this floral image on this sheet is what I'm going to use to place down. I just thought it was so pretty, so Christmassy. I'm telling you, her images on her transfers are just absolutely beautiful. But I thought this would be perfect right on top of these musical notes. Now, don't do what I did. I got a little impatient. I did not let my decoupage medium dry completely, so my transfer kind of wanted to stick here and there and not lift up just right. So I did struggle with it a little bit. So let your surface dry completely before you try to apply a transfer. But it's just a matter of rubbing it down. Now in her transfers, she does supply you with a little rubbing piece. It looks like a little plastic credit card. So don't fret, you will get something to rub down your transfers with. But I am going to get this rubbed down and get that carrier sheet released. And once that's down, I'm going to grab some antique gold metallic paint. This is from Paint Couture, but you could use any kind of gold. If you've got some rub and buff, that would work perfectly fine. But I'm just going to highlight some of the details around the rim of this bowl, just bringing it out. I want this to have a little bit of a Victorian appearance. And I just think adding this gold brings out those details so much. If you're not a gold fan, use a silver. If you're not silver, use some of that Spanish copper rub and buff. That is a gorgeous color. But anyway, once I get that complete, I am going to grab this ribbon. It came from Hobby Lobby, over where all our Christmas ribbons are. And I want to cover up where that lighter color paint meets that darker paint. I couldn't get it as crisp as I would have liked to, so I thought putting something here and masking that would be perfect. So I've got some of this ribbon. It's a gold color, and I'm just going to use my Eileen's Turbo Tacky Glue to adhere that down. Using hot glue, you would absolutely be able to see all that hot glue mess. It would not dry down right. This Eileen's Turbo Tacky Glue is going to dry clear, and you will never see it once it completely dries. So I will just get a nice thin layer over that. And then I like to start at the top because I do have plans of putting something up there that's going to cover our seam. So I will just start at the top and work my way all the way around, just pressing it in that glue with my finger. And I do take a little baby wipe and I wipe up a little bit of that excess because I did get a little too much in a few spots. And then I'm just going to sit and let that dry. Now I'm going to grab some of this bendable wire that I love to get from Amazon, and that is what I'm going to use as my hanger. I am sure there is an easier way to attach this, but this was the only way I could come up with. And once I get that through the back side and just twist it around on the front side. And I am just going to twist it really well. Once I get that twisted, I will just trim off some of that excess. I grab my Starbond glue. I love this stuff. This stuff works fantastic. But I'm just going to put a little dab right behind where we twisted that wire. And I am holding the hanger on the back side, and then I just grab my pliers to make sure I've got that metal pushed into that glue. All right, once that glue has set up and dried, it is time to add just a little bit of embellishment. These little pieces came from the Dollar Tree, and I just clipped a piece off, and this was just like the little top section of that pick. And I thought, you know, this is perfect. This fit in here absolutely perfect. So I'm just going to use a little bit of hot glue, and I'm just going to push that in there and hold that until that sets up. And then I have got some berries that I pick up from Hobby Lobby, and I love these berries. I thought, you know what, I'm just going to pull them individually off of their stem. I'm going to grab 3 of them, and then I'm just going to adhere them with some hot glue. And then this project will be finished, and it's time to move on to our final project with DIY number 3. So I have a lot of picture frames. So I grabbed this one. I don't know. I love the design on it, but I'm going to peel off of the back, take all of the contents from inside out, and set that all aside. Now the backing is one of those backings that are attached, so I could not remove that out of the way. I did have to work around it as I'm painting, but I also did go ahead and remove that tag. And I'm going to grab my color Iron Gate once again, and I am going to paint this frame in this color, and I do end up giving it 2 coats. Of course, you can do your projects in any color that you wish. I am just hoping to give you a little bit of inspiration, get your creative juices flowing, and get you crafting. All right, once I got that painted and it's all dried, I cleaned up the glass very well. I just used some rubbing alcohol. I'm going to place that back inside the frame. And then this image here, oh my God, this is the most beautiful image I've ever seen. And I couldn't even find it in my heart to decoupage with it. So I'm just showing you, if you find a decoupage sheet that you love, use it in a frame. Just tuck it in there and you will have such a pretty piece. And I absolutely love this. So once I get it in there, I am going to add just a little something. I've got some gold gilding wax. This is from DIY Paint, and just going to take it on a brush and just lightly go over this frame, just highlighting those details once again. And again, you can use a metallic paint, you can use the rub and buff, you use whatever makes your heart happy. But after I got those sections on there with that gold, I just took a towel and I just started wiping it back. And when I did that, it just gave me the most beautiful look, not too vibrant, just enough gold. And I don't know, I can't even explain it. I thought it turned out so beautiful. I got this little gold pick. I actually got this on Whatnot. It's very, very pretty. It's a muted gold. It's going to look so good with this frame, but I'm just going to shape it. And I end up clipping off what I didn't need, but I'm going to want this to set right here in this bottom corner. And that frame has a little bit of movement, so I'm just going to tuck it in under the frame, in between that glass there, shape it up, and then this project will be complete, and I think it came out absolutely stunning. You guys will have to let me know in the comment section which of these three was your favorite, and don't forget the playlist link is in my description box. Go check out all of these wonderful creators, and thank you, Brandy, once again for inviting me to this wonderful playlist. So let's take a look at our finale.